Get ready for the big revival. The real estate revival, that is. Now on 77 WABC, your New York weekend.
Are you ready for the big revival?
It's Rand on Real Estate. With Greg Rand.
Welcome to the big real estate revival. My name is Greg Rand. I'm the host of Rand on Real Estate on 77 WABC and WABCRadio.com. I'm joined by my co-host, Laura Smith. How are you?
It's great to be here as always. Thanks, Greg.
It's great to have you. So we're going to talk about a lot of things today. We've got some fun things online. We're going to talk about the unintended consequences of government meddling, a very topical issue because they're meddling as we speak in Washington, and they can't seem to stop doing that, meddling in the private sector. So we're going to talk about how that affects the housing market. We're going to talk about, we're going to duke it out with a friend of mine, Paul Adler, who has an opposite point of view of this subject a little bit down the line. And we're going to focus on analyzing real estate. This is a real estate show. So we talk about the political implications, but also I'm here trying to teach you everything that I can about how to get wealthy in real estate, because we're entering the part of the market cycle where, as ugly and dreary and painful as it is, that's exactly the time when you're supposed to be thinking about making your move. So we're going to be talking about the Las Vegas real estate market. You might have heard a little bit of how Las Vegas is in a storm right now of a very, very painful situation. But we're going to examine whether that's something that is an opportunity or something you want to stay away from. So stay tuned through the show. It's going to be interesting. And so first I'm going to focus on the government meddling, or as they'd rather put it, government intervention. There has been an enormous amount of government intervention in the economy across all levels, and the housing market is no different. And what they never seem to get through their heads is that there are these things called unintended consequences, right? Now, I run a business. I'm always focused on unintended consequences, because if I do something and I'm not playing the right chess game, I'm not focusing on what the response is going to be by my customers, what the response is going to be by my competitors, what the response might be by my employees. If I'm not thinking a couple of moves ahead at all times, that comes out of my pocket. You know, the unintended consequences is I lose customers, I lose employees, I lose market share. And so those of us in business understand the nature of thinking these things through. But they don't always do that in Washington because, you know, if you're cynical like me, you suspect maybe it's really just about headlines and landing punches on the opposition. And so they don't care what the consequences are as long as they get the goods in the here and now. It's interesting, you know, it is so basic, this notion of self-inflicted wounds and unintended consequences. I have two little kids, Laura. We talk about them on the show now and then. They're 6 and 8, and I, being a raging capitalist as I am, I try whenever the opportunity arises to teach them something about the business world. I'll give you a funny example. It's kind of off topic, but it's interesting. I came home one day in August, and my kids had done the lemonade stand. Mm-hmm. They did the lemonade stand, and the reason I knew is there was still a table and chairs and a sign that said lemonade on the end of my driveway. There were no kids. The shop was closed, but they didn't take any stuff in. So I gather up the chairs and everything else and bring them inside. And the kids are ecstatic. They show me this box full of money. Okay.
Right.
They were smart enough, because Daddy's always teaching them lessons on marketing. They were smart enough to recognize that Wednesdays was the day that the landscapers are on the block. Okay, so they all come. There's a couple of landscaping companies that kind of dominate our neighborhood, and these guys are on the block. And so that was when my kids decided it's hot. They're out there. Let's do the lemonade thing. And they had $18 in the box, and they were psyched. And so I said, okay, this is an opportunity for me to teach them something about business. So I said, how much lemonade did you pour today? Mm-hmm. And they said 3, and it was those little Crystal Light packets, you know, the little cups.
Right.
That you put it inside the jug and with the water in the jug. So they had made 3. So I said, okay, I took the little empty carton and it was 3, and it was $3. And I said, okay, give me the $18. I counted 1, 2, 3, put it in my pocket, and handed it back $15. And they're like, Dad, they were crushed.
Right.
I stole their money. I said, no. I don't know what you think that cabinet is not a magical cabinet that you just open it one day and there's lemonade sitting in there. That cabinet is stocked by Daddy every week. And so Daddy's going to take, this is a little lesson on something called cost of sale. It cost you a little bit of money to make that lemonade, and now you got to pay the piper. And of course they complained, and I said, well, if you want, I'll teach you a lesson about occupancy expense, which is, you may think that's your driveway. That's Daddy's driveway. Daddy pays for the driveway. You live here rent-free, and so I could charge you for the use of the driveway and the table and chairs if I want to, but I won't because I'm a good guy. But that kind of clammed him up, because I told him, you know, rent might be something like another $3 if they're not careful. Mm-hmm. So they walked away with a $15 gross profit, and they were pretty happy about it. So that's kind of what I mean when I try to teach these guys a little bit about capitalism and business. But I wanted to teach them the idea of unintended consequences also. And so I went to the classic example of give a man a fish,
Right.
feed him for a day, teach him to fish, feed him for a lifetime. So I gave it to him this way. So the person goes on a beach and comes across the guy who's sitting there. He's sad. He's just depressed, and he looks like he needs help. So you say, what's going on? And he says, I'm hungry. So I look across down the beach a little ways. There's somebody with a fishing pole, and he's got a bucket, and there's 3 or 4 fish, and he's got another one on the hook, and he's reeling them in. So the person wanting to do good says, sit right here, I'll be right back, walks across the thing, tells the guy, I want one of your fish. This guy over here is hungry. Of course, the guy objects, but let's imagine the person I'm talking about is in charge of the beach. They're in charge.
Okay.
So they said, okay, well, we're taking the fish. So you could have given it up voluntarily. You didn't want to. They pull a fish out of the bucket, bring it to the other guy. He's happy. He's got his fish. And the do-gooder goes on his walk and is feeling good about the person who he took care of today. Comes back the next morning. And, of course, there's 2 guys sitting on the ground, looking hungry, looking up at their savior, saying, we're hungry again. So they look down the beach. There's that guy with the fishing pole. They go over. He's got 5 fish in the bucket. 5 is way more than that guy really needs. So they pull 2 fish out of the bucket, go down, give it to the 2 guys. Everybody wins. The other guy still has 3, which is more than the other people are getting. And the do-gooder feels great about his accomplishment. Comes back the next day. And, of course, there's 5 guys sitting on the beach. There's a bucket of 5 fish. They come over and say, well, we're taking the bucket. Keep fishing. You have plenty of sunlight left. Fish some more to take care of yourself. We're taking the bucket. They bring it over, give it to the 5 guys. And so even my 6-year-old figured out where this was going. You come back the next day. There's 50 people sitting on the beach, and one of them is the fisherman. And this is where the unintended consequences come in. Oh. The do-gooder on the beach is now wondering, how am I going to feed 50 people when there's nobody willing to go out there and do the work of fishing?
And they got it.
I think they might have gotten it, yeah. So this is a message that I wanted to share with them, this idea that there are complicated problems in the world, and they require complicated solutions, and giving the person a fish is not a complicated solution. It's what I call the 1-degree solution. You're facing a problem, you turn yourself 1 degree, and you think you came up with a solution. And if you have an Ivy League degree in your back pocket, you're pretty sure you're the smartest person around, and so that must be just the kind of genius solution that everybody's been looking for. And way too often we see a lot of that coming out of Washington. So when it comes to the housing market and the unintended consequences of 1-degree solutions, I want to bring you back to the middle of the roaring 2000s when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac first began to go through a metamorphosis and become the monster that they've become. And it was a movement in government that said that we would like to see home ownership rates go up. It's a noble intent. More people owning homes is a good thing. And the only problem is that the way to get more people to own homes is to teach more people how to save money, get more people understanding how to budget their expenses, and get them to do home ownership the right way. Mm-hmm. But the 1-degree solution from our friends in Washington was just make the loans easier to get. If they don't have the money, so give them the money to buy the house. Well, they don't have any down payment, so give them the money to buy all of the house, 100% financing. Well, they don't have enough income. You're not listening. We want you to give them the money. So let them write on a piece of paper. It's called stated income mortgage underwriting. If you state that you make $100,000, well, you make $100,000. So they basically systematically lowered the standards to give loans out. And this is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They are the entities that set the guidelines for the way the national mortgage banking industry approves or doesn't approve mortgages. So when we come back after the break, we're going to play you some audio of some of the people that in their own words, how they felt about this and why they did it. And I think you can see for yourself that it's a pretty scary situation that may be repeating itself. You're listening to Rand on Real Estate on 77 WABC. I'm Greg Rand, back in 1 minute.